42 years old, Andre Collins made a comfortable living. As a senior HVAC technician in Houston, his salary was a steady $72,000 a year, enough to feel secure, enough to provide. He was a good man, a quiet man, with hands calloused from years of wrestling with compressors and ductwork. His deep brown skin seemed to hold the warmth of the Texas sun, and his neat locks were often tucked under a company baseball cap. He believed in simple things: hard work, honesty, and the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. For 8 years, he believed he was building a life, an investment, a home with his wife, Rochelle. He had no idea how profoundly wrong he was. The devastating truth began to surface not with a bang, but with a quiet, cruel command uttered in the one place he thought was his. It was a Saturday afternoon, the air thick with the promise of a humid Houston summer. Andre was in the kitchen, the heart of the single-story bungalow in Alif they all shared. He had laid out the ingredients for his special gumbo, a recipe passed down from his father. The holy trinity of onion, celery, and bell pepper was already diced, a colorful mound on his $80 bamboo cutting board. He'd spent over $120 at the local H-E-B on fresh Gulf shrimp, andouille sausage, and all the necessary spices. The kitchen was his pride, mostly because he had personally outfitted it. The gleaming $2,000 Samsung Smart Fridge hummed quietly, a testament to his good credit. He was stirring a roux in a heavy-bottomed pot on the $3,200 Wolf gas range he'd installed as a 5th anniversary present to Rochelle, a luxury she'd coveted. The smell of toasting flour and butter was just beginning to fill the air. That's when Gloria, his mother-in-law, walked in. Gloria was a woman who carried herself with an air of regal ownership. Her silver hair perfectly coiffed, her nails always manicured. She surveyed the scene, her eyes landing on Andre at her expensive stove. A frown creased her smooth, light brown face. "Andre, what are you doing?" Her voice was not curious, it was accusatory. He smiled, not yet sensing the chill descending upon the room. "Making my gumbo, Gloria. Thought we could have a nice family dinner." Gloria walked over and peered into the pot. Her nose wrinkled as if she smelled something foul. "This is a mess." She waved a dismissive hand, the diamonds on her $3,000 anniversary ring catching the light. "And this is my kitchen." She turned to face him, her expression one of utter condescension. "You pay the bills, Andre. That's your role. You don't belong in here, making a mess of my things. Get out." The words hung in the air sharper than any knife. Get out. Not let me help, not maybe later. Just a cold, hard dismissal. Andre stood frozen, the wooden spoon suspended over the pot. He felt the blood drain from his face. At that moment, Rochelle drifted in, drawn by the voices. She was wearing a new $400 silk lounge set Andre's credit card had paid for last week. She saw her husband's stunned face and her mother's imperious stance. "What's going on?" Rochelle asked, her voice light. "I've told Andre to leave the kitchen," Gloria said, not taking her eyes off him. "He can order a pizza if he's hungry. He's good at paying for things." Andre looked at his wife, searching for an ally, for a single word of defense. He found none. Rochelle gave a little placating laugh and touched his arm. "Mama's right, honey. You know how she is about her kitchen. Let's not make a fuss. We can just order from Frenchie's. Come on." She was siding with her. She was validating the insult. In that moment, Andre wasn't a husband or a partner. He was a service provider, an ATM, a guest who had overstepped his bounds. He looked from his wife's averted eyes to his mother-in-law's triumphant smirk. Without a word, he turned off the burner. He carefully placed the spoon on the counter, took off the apron he was wearing, and folded it. He scraped the $100 worth of chopped vegetables into the trash. He put the lid on the pot of useless, half-cooked roux. He did it all with a slow, deliberate calmness that was more terrifying than any shouting match could have been. He washed his hands, dried them, and walked out of the kitchen, the echo of Gloria's words carving a canyon in his soul. "You pay bills, Andre. You don't belong here." He went into the backyard and sat on the steps of the patio he had built with his own 2 hands, a project that had cost him $1,500 in materials and 3 full weekends of labor. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the perfectly manicured lawn he mowed every Saturday. He had never felt so utterly alone in a place so full of his own sweat and money. He had paid for this house, but he did not belong in its kitchen. The injustice of it settled deep in his bones, a cold, heavy stone. And he knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the core, that this could not continue. What he didn't know was that the foundation of his entire life was a lie, and the proof was waiting for him, stuck to the door of a refrigerator he had bought and paid for. Have you ever poured your heart and soul into something, only to be told you don't belong? It's a feeling that hollows you out, and for Andre, this was just the beginning. Stick with us to see how a man who was treated like a walking wallet finally decided to close the bank. The arrangement had started 8 years ago, born out of a crisis, and presented as an opportunity. Gloria, recently widowed, was on the verge of losing her home in Alief. The mortgage on the 3-bedroom bungalow, a modest brick house on a quiet street, was more than her widow's pension could handle. The original loan was for $180,000, and she still owed a considerable amount. Rochelle had come to Andre with tears in her eyes, her face a mask of loving concern for her mother. They were sitting in their small, cramped apartment at the time, a place that cost them $1,300 a month in rent. "My mama is going to be homeless, Andre," she'd said, her voice thick with emotion. "She's worked her whole life for that house. It's all she has left of my daddy." Andre, a man whose entire life was built on the principle of fixing things, immediately wanted to help. "What can we do, baby? We can give her some money each month." Rochelle had a bigger idea. "No, it's more than that. She needs a permanent solution." She took his hands in hers. "What if we moved in with her? We could take over the mortgage payment. It's $1,450 a month. That's barely more than our rent here. We'd have a whole house, a yard, and instead of throwing money away on rent, we'd be building equity. It would be our house, Andre, our family home, our biggest investment." It sounded perfect. It sounded responsible. He would be rescuing his mother-in-law, providing a beautiful home for his wife, and investing in their future all at once. It was the ultimate act of service and stability. A proud, solid black man, providing for his family. "Are you sure?" he'd asked. "Gloria is okay with that?" "She'd be thrilled," Rochelle had assured him. "It's the only way she can keep it. We'll be a family, all under one roof." They even signed a small, informal document Rochelle had typed up. It was a single page, stating that Andre Collins agreed to have the monthly mortgage payment of $1,450 automatically debited from his Chase checking account for the property at 7418 Holly Hall Street, in consideration of it being their shared family home and joint investment. He signed it without a second thought. It felt official, a promise between him and his wife. It was his first and most critical mistake. The first year was a blur of activity. Andre moved them out of the apartment, saving the $1,300 monthly rent. He set up the automatic payment from his account directly to the Wells Fargo mortgage. The first draft felt momentous, a real step toward ownership. He immediately got to work making the house a home. The central air conditioning unit was old and inefficient. As an HVAC professional, he couldn't stand it. He got a brand new, top-of-the-line $4,500 train unit at his wholesale cost, and spent an entire weekend installing it himself, saving them at least $3,000 in labor. Gloria and Rochelle had praised him effusively, bringing him lemonade while he worked in the blistering Houston heat. He painted the living room, a soft gray Rochelle had picked out. He replaced all the old corroded faucets in the bathrooms with shiny new Moen fixtures, a $400 expense. He bought a new lawnmower, a $350 Craftsman, and took pride in keeping the St. Augustine grass thick and green. The house was his project, his canvas. Every paycheck went toward its upkeep and improvement. His $72,000 salary was stretched between the $1,450 mortgage, the utility bills which were now in his name, the car payment on his $35,000 Ford F-150, and the constant stream of household needs. Rochelle and Gloria, meanwhile, settled into a life of comfort. With the housing cost covered, Rochelle's $41,000 salary as a receptionist was almost entirely disposable income. She bought new clothes from Macy's and Dillard's, her closet filling with brands like Michael Kors and Coach. Her shoe collection alone was worth more than Andre's entire tool set, which he relied on to make his living. His $80 Red Wing work boots stood in stark contrast to her rows of $600 Stuart Weitzman heels. Gloria, her financial worries erased, spent her days gardening and hosting her friends from church for long lunches. They would sit on the patio furniture Andre had assembled, drinking iced tea and admiring the rose bushes Gloria tended. Andre was often at work during these gatherings, but when he was home, he felt like staff. Gloria would ask him to fetch things, to check the air conditioning, to take out the trash, always with a polite but firm tone that set him apart from the guests. He was the handyman, the groundskeeper, the financial backbone, but he was not one of them. He tried to ignore the feeling. He told himself it was just Gloria's way. He was a simple man, and she was a proud woman. He was providing. That was his role, and he took pride in it. But the small slights began to accumulate, like stones in his pocket, weighing him down bit by bit. The small slights soon grew into larger, more painful moments of exclusion, each one a crack in the facade of their happy family. The betrayal wasn't a single event, but a slow, creeping erosion of his dignity, a death by 1,000 cuts. The outrage accumulated in the quiet corners of his heart, a pressure building with no release valve. The first major crack appeared during a family barbecue, about 2 years into the arrangement. Andre was at the helm of the $800 Weber grill he'd bought for the backyard, flipping burgers and hot dogs. The air was filled with the sounds of laughter and the upbeat rhythm of a gospel station playing softly from a portable speaker. Rochelle's cousins, aunts, and uncles were scattered across the lawn, enjoying the beautiful Saturday afternoon. Andre felt a swell of pride. This was the life he was building, a home filled with family, good food, and joy. One of Rochelle's cousins, a loud talker named Marcus, came over to the grill, grabbing a beer from the cooler. "Man, this is a nice setup you got here, Andre," he said, clapping him on the back. "You're living good. What's it like living in Auntie Gloria's house? She keeps it nice." The question was casual, innocent. But the phrasing, Gloria's house, prickled at Andre. He forced a smile. "It's our house, man. We all live here." Rochelle, who was nearby talking to her aunt, overheard. She quickly glided over, her smile bright and brittle. "Oh, Marcus, you know Andre, always joking," she said, looping her arm through Andre's. "He's just so grateful Mama lets us stay here. We're so blessed." She squeezed his arm, a silent command to play along. The whole group chuckled. "That's right, you better be grateful," one aunt chimed in. "Gloria's a generous woman." Andre felt the heat from the grill on his face, but a different kind of heat was rising inside him. He wanted to correct them, to say, "I pay the mortgage. every single dime. This is my house as much as it is hers." But he looked at Rochelle's smiling, insistent face, and the words died in his throat. He didn't want to cause a scene, to ruin the party. So he just nodded, flipped a burger with a little too much force, and said nothing. The laughter continued, but for Andre the joy of the day had vanished. He was a tenant in their eyes, a long-term guest, fortunate to be allowed in the home he was single-handedly paying for. The feeling of being an outsider in his own home intensified over the years. Christmas was always a stark reminder. One year, he decided to surprise the family with a major upgrade to the living room. He spent weeks researching and finally used his Christmas bonus to buy a massive 75-inch Sony television for $1,800. He mounted it on the wall himself, hiding the wires for a clean, professional look. He imagined them all gathered around it, watching holiday movies. When Rochelle and Gloria saw it, they were certainly surprised. "Oh, Andre, it's huge," Rochelle said, her eyes wide. Gloria offered a polite, thin-lipped smile. "Thank you, Andre. That was very thoughtful of you." Later that evening, he was in the hallway when he overheard Gloria talking to Rochelle in the kitchen, their voices low. "It's just too big for the space, don't you think?" Gloria said, her voice laced with disapproval. "It's a bit ostentatious. It makes the whole room look smaller." "I know, Mama," Rochelle whispered back, but he was so excited about it. "We'll just have to get used to it." Andre stood in the shadows of the hall, the brand new television casting a brilliant, mocking light into the living room. It wasn't a gift to the family. It was an imposition. It was his taste, his choice, and therefore it was wrong. He felt a familiar, sinking feeling. His contributions were not seen as investments in a shared life, but as temporary additions to Gloria's house, to be tolerated, but not truly embraced. He was decorating a home that would never really be his. The financial lines, once presented as so clear, became increasingly blurred and weaponized against him. Rochelle's spending habits grew more extravagant. One spring, she and Gloria became obsessed with the idea of a 7-day Caribbean cruise. The brochures were left open on the coffee table. The cost for the two of them, for a balcony suite, was just over $5,000. "We should book it, honey," Rochelle said one evening, snuggling up to him on the sofa. Andre was tired. He'd just finished a grueling week, crawling through stifling attics and dusty crawl spaces. He'd been putting in overtime to save up for a new set of diagnostic tools that would cost him nearly $1,200. "A cruise? Rochelle, I don't think we can swing that right now. $5,000 is a lot of money." Her face fell. She pulled away, her expression shifting from affection to annoyance. "What are you talking about? You make good money, Andre. What's the point of you working so hard if we can't enjoy it?" "We do enjoy it," he said, trying to keep his voice even. "We have this house. We have everything we need. The mortgage, the bills. It all adds up." And then she said it. The words that struck him like a slap. "But we live rent-free. That was the whole point of moving in here. All that money we save should be for us to have fun. Rent-free." The phrase hung in the air between them, ugly and sharp. "It's not rent-free, Rochelle," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "I pay a mortgage. We are supposed to be building equity. It's an investment, remember?" She threw her hands up in exasperation. "Oh, it's the same thing. Mortgage, rent, whatever. It's a bill you pay so we can live here. Why are you being so difficult about this? My mother and I deserve a vacation. You're not even coming. So, what do you care?" He had no answer for that. The conversation was over. She was telling him that his money was for her and her mother's enjoyment, and his opinion on how it was spent was irrelevant. His role was simply to generate the funds. They ended up taking the cruise. Andre saw the $5,230 charge on his Capital One card, which he had been slowly trying to pay down. He worked 2 weekends in a row to cover the extra cost, the exhaustion settling into his bones like a deep chill. All these moments, all these humiliations, were leading to one place. They were the kindling, the dry tinder, waiting for a spark. And that spark came on that fateful Saturday afternoon in the kitchen. The gumbo incident was not the start of the problem. It was the culmination of 8 years of being diminished, disrespected, and devalued. When Gloria said, "Get out of my kitchen," she wasn't just talking about the room. She was articulating the unspoken truth of their entire arrangement. This was her house. This was her space. He was the financial engine that kept it running, but he was not a part of the machine. He was the fuel, meant to be burned up and consumed without complaint. As he sat on the back steps that evening, the smell of his wasted ingredients still lingering in the air, he replayed the scene in his mind. He saw Rochelle's easy dismissal of his hurt, her quick alignment with her mother. For 8 years, he had told himself he was the patriarch of this family, the provider, the protector. But the truth was, he was just a tenant with a very expensive, very unfair lease. He was a fool. The rage that had been slowly building for years finally cooled into something else entirely. It became a cold, hard resolve. Something had to change. He just didn't realize how deep the deception went, or how swift and silent his response would be once he found out. He was about to discover the full scope of their betrayal, and they had no idea what was coming. Do you think they deserved what was coming to them? Let us know in the comments.